balancing all of this has required constantly asking myself, what is my why? And for me, it's always been that I want to be a more present mom. And when I worked in corporate, it meant getting up early, getting ready, and then driving back home and making dinner. All that shifted and pivoted when I chose that I will build a business. And that's come with its own challenges because I'm learning as I go. And it does require for me to still stay disciplined and sometimes not always being able to give 100% to all areas of my life.
Today on An Appetizing Life, I'm joined by Shilpa Lewis, a social media strategist, meditation coach, podcaster, and founder of Omni Mindfulness. How are you, Shilpa?
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so excited that you're here. And you and I met during the pandemic, which is wild. And we were decided to get trained in meditation, which you use in your business and I use in mine. And so I would love to hear how you even got there. But prior to that, you had a completely different career from being a coach that you are now. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So my background um, did include meditation. So my parents are Indian, and so I did do mindfulness modality practices throughout my life. But I got to a point in my career which was very different in technology and in a little niche area called user experience research and design. And I worked for major companies like Hewlett Packard. Enjoyed it, but I also was at a place where I wanted to do something a little more creative and independent and integrate some of the modalities from meditation. So that's where I ended up in a program with Lisa and you.
Yeah, it was actually a very useful time because there was so much going on in the world, and just to have that connection. And you and I connected right away. It was very funny, but
Yes.
yeah, it was. But what I love what you're doing now, because you've made the pivot from doing the UX, and you're combining, mindfulness and spirituality with tech, which I think is brilliant. And so because we need to have that balance so we're still human. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So what's exciting about where I'm at, and then the word pivot is very accurate. I, for years, thought if I could bundle up all of my skills and knowledge and experience and passion, what would it be and what would I do with it? So, as I've evolved into this solopreneurship role, one of the things I've recognized for myself is that uh, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of discipline to become an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur with other responsibilities like being a mom and being in a place where you want to bring balance. So, what I'm doing now is bringing this understanding that I've developed on energy and energy awareness and these different modalities, how it can support us on a more personal level, and also then extend that and say, how can we streamline our lives so that there is more holistic balance? Because I think that is something that is greatly missing in the lives of many people, but particularly women that want to pivot. They may still be in corporate or maybe considering doing something on their own, but without losing themselves in it. So that's where my heart is.
Yeah, and I would love you to talk about that pivot that you made because it's difficult, to go from, especially from corporate to now you're a solopreneur trying to figure it out. And so maybe share some of the highs and the lows of what you went through in creating your brand, Omni Mindfulness, and just your journey to get there.
Yeah. So when I created Omni Mindfulness, what was interesting about it is that it came like you hear people say, I had a hit and I just knew I needed to do something. That's what happened for me. I had gone through training in yoga and then children's yoga and had intended to eventually teach it. And in that time frame, when my son was about 2, his name's Omni, my mom passed away. So it became something that I really needed to do for myself. I needed to heal. And in that healing process, I created Omni Mindfulness and generated this set of, I would say, dream come true little projects. And one of them was Omni Mindfulness podcast. As I was doing all of this, I also was going through this journey like, well, how do I want to sustain my family? Do I want to be purely a meditation coach, or do I want to bring in all of the technology knowledge that I have, and which is very natural for me? So that's where I'm at now, that I want to support solopreneur moms, and the content that I develop in my podcast are really about having mindfulness in all facets of one's life. But also now my new foundation for my podcast also is a new one, and I'm calling it the soulful swagger journey or something to that effect. I have to come up with a better name, but basically how to support women that are solopreneurs.
Yeah, and let's talk about your journey into podcasting because that wasn't your lane. That was nothing that you knew about. So, and you and I went back and forth about what is it, what's it going to be, and so you've done how many episodes now? Over
101.
That's fantastic because most people don't get past 10. They don't. So I applaud you and celebrate you for that. So tell us a little bit more about the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast really came, um, I would say, because one part of my personality always has been what I practiced in corporate is, I would say, the storyteller. I love to follow people's journeys, be inspired, and see what we can take from that and create another life out of it. So I would listen to podcasts and get so inspired. And then I knew of someone that you also know of from our meditation
How
training days.
cryptic. Go on.
So do you remember Tanya? Tanya had her own podcast right after leaving our program, a meditation program. And I listened to her and I thought, wow, she's so brave. She just did it, you know? Like I tend to overthink things. So I just started doing it. I had to learn everything. I didn't even know what an intro was, an outro was, that there was a cover, and that it was so difficult to actually sustain as a podcaster. And about a year ago, I started thinking, what do I want to do now for maintenance and growth for my podcast? And I thought, well, maybe I'll get a sponsorship or maybe this or that. And I Googled my podcast and realized I was now top 10% by listen notes, which was a complete shock.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think let's roll back though, because you brought something up of people just freezing and not getting started. And you jumped in. And so if you can give the encouragement to people who are listening that don't hesitate, just jump in there and get it started. Because I mean, look where you're at now. We'll talk about some of the things that have happened because you have the podcast, because you never know what's going to happen. So
Yeah, absolutely. I know this is true for myself. I know it's true for a lot of people that we're sort of genetically wired to fear things. And then there's the fear, which then leads to freezing. And sometimes you think, oh, that would be cool. I want to do it. And then people may not go past just the idea of wanting to do something. And what I encourage people to do is test the waters, try it without judgment, because we're all in this space all together, learning as we go. And there's growth for everybody.
definitely, yeah, dip your big toe in. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know you've created a method to help women who are solo entrepreneurs and mompreneurs, because we'll get into that. That's a whole different space of running a solo business as well as trying to be a mom and start a solo business. But you have the OmniPivot method. And I would love for you to talk about that more. So, and share that.
Yeah. So the OmniPivot method really grew out of reflecting on what I was doing and then trying to simplify it as best as possible. So when I'm in a place to share and guide someone else, that it's like, aha, of course that sounds really easy. Of course, and we all know that it does take some work, but the the OmniPivot method is three parts. The first one, I really just encourage people to unveil their true desires and their why. And that is useful not only in terms of a personal growth area, but also on a professional level. And when you combine the two, you're in alignment with who you really are, which is one of the highest ways to serve yourself and serve your soul. The second part of the method is what I call craft. You craft something where you lose the inhibitions. And the third part is what I call elevate. And that's where you amplify your voice with confidence so that others in the world can know about you.
Yeah, and you and I are in alignment with that because the people I work with, it's like you got to figure out why you're doing it, what your values are, what your passions are before you even, make one move forward because alignment, that's such a key word, is everything. And so I, I love what you're doing. I love the direction you've taken it into, which is different and needed, out there. So it's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about going back to combining AI with spirituality, or mindfulness, or both,
Yeah.
and why you felt there was a need for that, for especially right now, because we're inundated with every day there's a new AI app. Every day there's something unfolding in the world, and there's a lot of fear and trepidation about it. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I just gave a talk at AI Unlocked a few months ago on this very topic of AI spirituality. And the mission that I believe I have is to educate not only myself, but others. And ultimately, tying it back to the alignment part, we all are here for a purpose, and it's a higher purpose. And what if a lot of areas of our lives where we spend so much energy can really be channeled into personal growth and doing it better and faster rather than fearing AI, which has been under the hood around for a while. I actually studied AI in undergrad and I dismissed when the whole fad started coming around like a few years. I'm like, oh, whatever, because it's been around.
That's so funny because we talked about that, and you're like, "Well, it's nothing new. What's all the fuss about?" And so I think a lot of people, there's been a lot of hype. There's been a lot of false starts with different companies, and so it's moving quickly, but it's still not in its way, right? You
It
agree?
is. And absolutely, and what that goes back to, it's a subtle concept, but I know you'll get it. Is that AI? When we talk about truly utilizing it, it really also means when you start, say, using a large language model type tool like ChatGPT, you need to understand who you are, what your voice is. That is where the fear really is. People don't want to lose their identity or have something else take over for them, but nobody can replace you. But you need to learn how to work with it and harness it so that it mimics your tone and voice.
Absolutely, and it's your assistant. We've had this conversation. It's simply your assistant. It's not going to take over, what you're doing the day to day. And I think, especially after a certain age, I think it could be very useful and helpful to make the aging process a little bit easier, um, in your day to day, a little bit easier. But we have to be safe with it, right? And then remove the fear of it as much as we can, because it could go wrong.
It could go wrong. Yeah. I mean, we do need to, I would say, just be vigilant and aware. But by the same token, there are the daily tools that can completely change your productivity. Even if somebody's retired and they don't have any ambitions to create a product or service online, but let's say just even communication, writing, other things. And I've also heard people get afraid that they'll lose their mental capacity because something else is taking over to help them. but it can also enhance you. I have more conversational dialogue with my AI, and I feel like it actually helps me have it as a sounding board.
Yeah, and think out of the outside the box. That's what I find, especially, doing all the videos and all that stuff and figuring out copy. It's like, oh, I didn't think of that angle. Now I can take it in that direction with what's in my brain and use it, you know,
Yeah.
to
Just
create.
today, yeah, I mean, like if you want an example of how I use it, this I spent the last 3 hours planning for Q4, which is beginning in October. So I still have time to do a little bit of planning. And I got this planner and I was wrestling in my head like, what are my top three big goals? How do I break those down? And then how do I have alarms, or not alarms, but alerts set up so that I am being aligned with my core values. So I'm not hyper focusing on one goal and not focusing on another. All this planning I did with ChatGPT. I gave it my top three goals. We broke it down, and now I have all these post-it notes for Q4.
I know that post-it note wall
Yeah,
very well, very, very well. So you're a mom and a wife, and I would love for you to talk about the balancing act of that because especially when you were first trying to start your business, your son was a little bit younger. So that
yeah.
required a little more focus and energy on him. And you have to nurture your marriage and you have to nurture yourself. So for those women out there who are thinking about doing this pivot, doing the second, third, fourth act and thinking, how do I juggle this? What do I do? What do you offer them to help?
It's been a journey, and anything I share is not something that I didn't go through. I mean, I'm work in progress. Balancing all of this has required constantly asking myself, what is my why? And for me, it's always been that I want to be a more present mom. And when I worked in corporate, it meant getting up early, getting ready, and then driving back home and making dinner. All that shifted and pivoted when I chose that I will build a business. And that's come with its own challenges because I'm learning as I go. And it does require for me to still stay disciplined and sometimes not always being able to give 100% to all areas of my life. And this is why I created the energy awareness model that I'm trying to teach is that maybe we can't be 100% perfect in all areas of life, but learning to manage that energy and becoming more aware of how we're affecting others and affecting ourselves is a huge step because there's a lot of people will teach you how to build a business and there are tools out there, but how do you manage your energy while you're building the business is very difficult.
Yeah, how do you take care of yourself? It's so important. And we've seen the last few years all of these content creators and just people in general burning out because we're trying to do way, way, way too much. And so I think what you're doing is important to help the women that are trying to get started in this area.
Absolutely. By having a routine, and I'm sure everyone has their own routines, but being very conscious and intentional with your routine. I, in my iPhone, will log simple things that I do in my morning routine because there's like that dopamine hit. Oh, okay, I got it done. Like, that's my meditation.
And we love those dopamine hits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or like,
social media knows that. That's why they do what they do. So that's another show.
yeah. That's another
It's a completely
yeah.
different show.
But yeah, meditation is the number one thing, and doing it. And there's research that's been done that if you do a minimum of 12 minutes, that it does affect your brain and your ability to focus, and also it helps with just calming your whole system down.
Yeah, and I found it, and we've talked about this as a really useful tool when I'm working with clients because sometimes people come in and something has just happened right before they got on, the call or came into my office or whatever. And they're all over the place. And I have to say, you know what? We're going to pause for a second. Can we just breathe for 2 minutes quietly? And I actually had one woman, we went through this whole thing, and the body awareness, you kind of go through the whole body parts to
Mhm.
see where you're feeling tension and everything. And when we finished, she just started crying. And she's like, oh my God, I have not slowed down at all until this moment. She goes, I've been trying to do 10 things at once. And I said, you can't, because it's one bite at a time. And so I think it's just, we talk about taking the pause. We talk about just if you have to take a breath for 1 minute or go, outside for a second, do something to just slow yourself down. It's so, so important.
Yeah, even teaching young ones, like my son yesterday was really frustrated trying to get some homework done, and he got it done, but then he started to cry. And I told him, just go for a walk or go ride your bike.
Yeah, because you have to switch it up and distract yourself to do something else, to just switch your thoughts. It does
Mm-hmm.
work. It sounds so simple, but we don't always do it.
Well, think of it as an energy. It's an energy. There's a loop, and it's going, and you have to break that circuit. That's exactly what happens when you are in any place where the energy is stuck. We just need to go for a walk, take a deep breath. Um, we get a dopamine hit. I'm just kidding.
I know. I like to go outside into my garden and clip some herbs for dinner later. But it helps,
Yeah.
as silly as it may sound or as simple as it may sound, it does definitely help, with everything. What is most satisfying for you when you're working with clients and you see them evolving and changing? Like, how does that make you feel? Does it make you reflect on your journey and how you got there? And I get excited. You know me, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're doing this. This is fantastic. So I'm just curious how you feel.
I have two types of clients. One are those who are trying to become solopreneurs working with technology, but with even with them, I bring in a lot of my mindfulness work. And on the other end, there's the clients with just the need for maybe mindfulness modalities like meditation. In both cases, what I enjoy the most, the word hope comes to mind. Like I see somebody suddenly lighting up, and you can see that they have hope that they can do something more. Like I have one client I had for a while. She's been trying to publish her book, and she was excited that I could maybe help her get the clients to start looking at her book and getting more viewership.
And that's always exciting to see, see people evolve and everything. Now, you just brought up a word, and I have a little segment called Words That Matter because I'm working on a project. And I have everybody who's on the show, there's a very long list. They're like, really, Lisa? But there's a very long list of words. And you picked out 3 words you picked out were passion, imagination or imagine, and authentic. So I'm just very curious right now in this moment in time, because you filled that out a while ago. Which one of those 3 words is really, resonating with you right now in what you're doing in your life, in your business, just in general?
Yeah, all three are deeply connected with my personality and who I am. Passion, imagination, and authenticity are authentic. At the moment, though, given that I just finished my Q4 planning and just truly visualizing what 2025 will bring and how I can shift, how I can imagine every moment being special and being able to be present so that it's not just about what will happen at the end of quarter 4, but what can happen in 10 minutes from now, what can happen now. How can I be more present with my breath? How can I be a better mom, wife, friend? Those are the things that come to mind.
I love that. You know, again, it's about pausing and reflecting, what is actually happening in the moment,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I just finished the last podcast series. I do them in series, and I had myself hit a little bit of a burnout, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to pause. So my podcast series for 3 months was all different reflective ideas or imagination ideas on what it means to pause.
And that's great. I need a t-shirt. Pause. Just press pause.
Pause, pause for the moment, you know?
So you're saying you took a break. I'm just curious what were some of the challenges you were facing during that time that made you have a little bit of a wake up call of I need to stop right now? Because sometimes we power through and we don't listen, and that's when things happen, either health wise or in other ways. So what was it that let you realize mm, it's time to just put the brakes on for now? It'll be there. I'll get back to it, but it's time to pause right now.
Yeah, a series of things. I mean, we had lost my mother-in-law the beginning of the year, and I know it's already towards the end, but just that alone set a ripple effect of things that needed to happen in our lives, and then a lot of moments of pause to wonder, like, where is my energy going? Why is it going in the way it is? And what had I realized was that I was on hyperdrive, and sometimes I'm on overdrive. And then I'll even see myself like from the outside in awareness, like, she's on overdrive now. She needs to slow down. I mean, I even though I know better, sometimes I forget my own tools. So I just, the pause was so beneficial. It was such a gift to myself. I read a lot. I meditated more. I'm still transitioning and shifting and growing. I feel like a year from now, the Shilpa you'll talk to will hopefully be even more grounded and, let's say, spiritually well, hopefully.
Now, Shilpa, I want to roll back because you threw out two words there, hyperdrive and overdrive. And I'm just curious, what is your definition of that? And if you gave an example of what that would look like for somebody, so maybe they can be aware of, when they're in that situation or in that moment.
Yeah. Something I did think about and talk about a lot in this past podcast season. I really wanted to understand my own mind and what was happening in my heart. What I noticed was that I have so many goals and sub goals and things I need to do. A lot of times I'm figuring out things from scratch, and I have it all laid out. The next thing I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I start? I have so many post-it notes, so many ideas and thoughts, and I just needed to stop. Like, because I can hear the thoughts racing, and my heart racing all the time. I'm sure that happens to people that are overdrive and hyperdrive, and they're just you. It's almost like having a mini panic attack.
Yeah, well, overdrive and hyperdrive equal overwhelm in my head because it's
Yeah,
just too much. We're not designed for that, so it's definitely just too much.
just too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just to help those who are listening, not only being able to recognize it is helpful, but it's not the metaphor I want to use is it's when, let's say it's a Titanic, it's moving on the ocean, it can't switch gears and start navigating the other way, even if it knows it needs to go. So it's similar in giving yourself grace, like, okay, I've recognized this. I need to go this way and I need to slow down, but it's going to take some momentum to shift. So while you're doing that, becoming aware that taking a more holistic approach. So I have been like, okay, am I drinking the right tea? Am I getting enough sleep? And I start really doing an inventory check of or an audit of your life.
Yeah, and that audit is good to do, I don't know, every 6 months because life isn't static, it keeps changing. New things are introduced or taken away. So, I don't know, every 6 months, what do you think?
Yeah, and that's essentially why I created this energy awareness I thought there's, think of it as a circle of all the different facets of your life, and you may have to put energy into different areas at different times. Sometimes we forget, or we know what I haven't gone to the gym in like X number of days, or I've been not sleeping properly for 6 months, which sometimes happens to me. Then this audit, this energy awareness audit, and then mapping each of the different sections of your life to the modalities that'll help you get balanced is, I think, so essential, especially if you're on this pivot track or you're a solopreneur or a mom who's trying to juggle so much.
And I think that's what you just said about finding the right things that work for you, because not everything is going to work for you or be right for you, and that's okay. So don't just do something or a modality or whatever thinking you have to because everybody else in their, mom is doing it. Just find what works and go with that, and let that sit with you, and see how that works.
Absolutely. And depending on the season of your life and season, literally the season of the year, sometimes different modalities work better than others. I have a friend, she loves to run. She's so good. That is her therapy. For me, I love to be in water and I love to swim. And just that morning and evening meditation is my place of being sacred and giving myself some love.
Yeah, yeah. I like to walk and I like to cook. There's something meditative about, stirring and chopping and gathering the ingredients and cleaning up, it comes full circle. And so, yeah, find that thing that just soothes your soul, I guess, is what we're saying.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you and I had bonded over, like when we first met, is I love to cook. I just think that it's so therapeutic, and just and then you get to give a little bit of that love to someone else who's in your family.
Yeah, very exciting to see people happy, happy and
Yes,
full.
yeah, yes,
So all of your hard work, you're getting recognition, and I know you were recently in I Am magazine. So I would love to hear more about that and what you've been doing for them.
sure. About a year ago, I was recommended to um, be on their cover and for wellness, and it's founded by two sisters, and Yadira and Jennifer, and they're just two amazing women.
And it's so exciting to see your name in print. It's like I know her.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I thought it was really fun, and it was exciting. I'd never been on a cover of a magazine.
Well, more to come.
Oh,
More to
thank you.
come in the book. All of it.
Yeah, there's a book there somewhere, huh?
Yeah, there's always a book somewhere. I don't know. I
Oh,
feel like that.
I'm writing a course.
Yeah, you are writing a course. And maybe, well, before we get into that, because I didn't want you to share with people what you're doing, is there anything else you want to tell women who are about to embark on this journey or are at the very beginning of it?
I would say that if there's even a part of your heart that says do it, that thought, that energy was put in your heart for a reason, and you can do it. It might take a longer than you expect, and there are different steps to getting your passion out there. But everyone wants to hear you in your voice, and um, I would say your talent. So and also it helps you grow spiritually, I think, because it allows you to truly manifest all parts of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody out there needs to hear your message. And after 50, we have so much experience, so much knowledge. Share it, right?
You share it, absolutely. and and I also like the idea that when we do this, that we can support other women. And when I was in corporate, it wasn't always so positive, but I made a vow to myself that I will use my time on earth and energy to support and uplift other women.
I love that. And that's what we need to be doing, especially now in the climate we're in. It's really, really important. Shilpa, this has been really wonderful. Can you tell people where they can find you at?
Sure. I am on all social media platforms. So you can find me on Instagram at omni.mindfulness. On YouTube, I have Omni Mindfulness, my channel, and you can also find a lot of my meditations there. You can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page and group, Omni Mindfulness, and I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a website, omnimindfulness.com, and my podcast, Omni Mindfulness.
You are busy. You're a busy woman. Shilpa, it's been so much fun. Thank you. I love what you're doing and how you're helping others out in the world and other women to move forward and do the best they can.
Thank you, Lisa. It's such an honor to be here with you, and always nice to connect with you. You're such an inspiring soul.
Aw, thank you. So are you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to An Appetizing Life. I hope you've enjoyed today's conversation. Please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and be sure to leave a review. Until next time, keep laughing, loving, and living vibrantly.